Kayla Hoffman, Needmore, Indiana, in case you need to know that. I'm going to talk quick. 250 years ago, my sixth great-grandfather, Thomas White, immigrated to the North American colonies. Within 3 years of the move, Thomas found himself dumping copious amounts of tea over the side of a ship in Boston Harbor as an act of protest against the British. Joining with men like Paul Revere, John Hancock, and Samuel Adams, Thomas White injected himself into the fabric of American history, pledged his continued loyalty to the cause of the Revolution while he and his sons served under General George Washington. And as we all know, the Revolutionary War secured the independence of the United States from Britain. Thomas White is my sixth great-grandfather. Last week, Mrs. Hawkins stood here and noted her concern for the future of NLCS. She made a claim that as a history teacher, she regularly teaches students about moments in history where emotionally compromised people have made bad choices. Are not the same emotionally compromised people who are for one action equal to the same emotionally compromised people who are against it? Of course we're emotionally compromised. We've survived a pandemic. There have been lots of changes in our community and our schools. Mrs. Hawkins and others have indicated that they believe there's some sort of vendetta against Mr. Mungle. They believe that once he's out the door, we might stop being vocal. Or maybe that's just their wish. There are entire systems in place that need repaired. If releasing Mr. Mungle from his duties were the only solution, I would gladly put away my keyboard and resign my designated warrior status. Because I was bullied as a child, I never wanted the spotlight on me. That remains the same today. I hate this. My goal is to elevate the voices of others, the voices of children with disabilities who have been mistreated by some of the very people in this room, the voices of anxious children who have been told they have to learn to deal with their anxiety better because they won't have the same kind of supports next year in middle school, the voices of children who literally have no voice, and their parents who cry out in desperation and anger at the realization that their child had been left alone multiple times with a man who was allowed to return to work before an investigation was complete for allegations of child molestation. The voices of staff members and former staff members who were promised protection and instead received betrayal. Voices of community members who have lost complete trust in their local school corporation because of an unwillingness to communicate openly and effectively, resulting in more questions than answers. NLCS has lost over 17% of students and well over 100 certified staff since 2019. If you are only afraid for your jobs or your children now, you've not been paying attention to the vast amounts of fabulous teachers and children who have left NLCS under Mr. Mungle. The administration made false claims to the Department of Education. On November 29th, a 4-year-old left the Playful Pathways campus through a breach in the fencing because of a gate that had not been installed. While an emergency call was made upon learning the child was not present in the building, this 4-year-old traveled on foot 7/10 of a mile down 5th Street to IGA before a concerned citizen called 911 and reported seeing the child. Law enforcement was involved and they returned the child to the school. Thank God the child was okay. Despite not being directly involved, Mungle did know about this happening, and yet he didn't inform the board of any of this until 6 days later. Instead of being forthcoming with the information and proactive about rectifying the situation, he chose not to address it with the board until he had no other choice. And there are other issues noted online under the inspection report. Mr. Mungle was not directly responsible, but he has taken a lot of pride and responsibility for the overall operations of the facilities.
I'm sorry, you're at 3 minutes.